Hey family, Ron Spears here. One of the most significant aspects of my life and legacy has been leading all the mission work done in Africa for my church in Detroit, Hartford Memorial Baptist Church, in which I'm a trustee. I've also been involved in the African Rites of Passage program for boys, which was called the CAFO Academy, and we took boys to the Gambia in West Africa each year for a manhood training ritual for rites of passage. We also had a program for girls called the Kentucky Academy, in which my wife ended up being the director of that program. And they took girls to Egypt each year until tourism got a little tricky in the 90s. And so they started coming to West Africa with us for the ritual. So I'm going to talk with you about the history of this whole rites of passage program, the mission work that we're doing in Africa, and how you can potentially yourself start a program like this or join our program in the future. So after the jump, I want to introduce you to one of my partners in crime with this program. His name is Alu and Yasi. This is an interview that I've been looking forward to. I've been blessed to do a lot of the mission work done at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church in Detroit. And the brother who's on the call or on the Zoom with me right now is um, Alu and Yasi. I'm gonna have him give a little bit of his background, but let me just sort of give a little bit of context first. Um, Leading the work that we do in Africa, it is his village in the Gambia that we are doing this great work. And this great work did not start with him. It did not start with me, but we're going to pay homage to the people who started this great work, and we're going to talk a little bit about his background and what it was like growing up in a village in West Africa, as well as he's been in America now for well over 20 years now and has raised a family. He's got a daughter that graduated from Michigan State, a daughter who's at Ohio State, and a son coming up. And growing up in a village in West Africa is a lot different than growing up in the States. And so, we're going to get into that a little bit and hopefully give people some motivation and some how to on how to create this type of ministry, this type of work. The whole vision behind this was our church pastor at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church in Detroit. His name is Dr. Charles Gilchrist Adams, and he had a vision that every Black church in America should adopt a village in Africa. And, that's a noble cause, that's a noble vision to have. And a lot of people would not disagree with that vision. But having a vision and an execution is two entirely different things. Not many churches and mosques and have done what Hartford has been able to do, not just for 1 or 2 years, but we're going on 25 plus years now, if not more. So it's a blessing, and it has been a blessing to have you in my life, brother. We have been through some highs and lows, but I think the highs are just extremely well. So with that, I just want you to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your background, and then we'll sort of, dive right in.
Thank you much, sir. So I think, like you said, born and raised in Penyam, tiny village in West Africa, the Gambia. Little did I know that I would be on this side looking back that way. Growing up in the village with very limited resources. And when we talk about limited resources, we are not talking about resources that one needs to survive, because people have survived before me and before them in that tiny community. And they were able to do with the little that they have and be able to appreciate each other and become one tiny little village where everybody knows everybody and everybody cares about everybody. What I have is yours and what you have is mine. But growing up with no elementary school in my village, and from first grade, walking at least 2 miles to the next village and then 2 miles back every day for 6 years, and having to move from the village to the city to high school to live with my uncle while I attended 5 years of high school. So those are some of the way I grew up. And then on the weekend, even though I lived in the city in Serakunda, I have to go back to the village on the weekend to help my parents with the farm work and other things that they need support with. But like you said, the work that we have done with Hartford began over 20 years ago when this African American leader came to my office, and in the name of Dr. Manuel Pearson, who is known in the Gambia as Mansa Koli Bojang. When I met him, that was the first time you guys actually came for the Rites of Passage, and the event was organized in Banjul. So I looked at it, I'm like, you organize this in Banjul? We can do this in the village, and it's going to be more meaningful. And he said, do you think the village will do it? I said, yeah. So I was able to go back and talk with the elders in Penyem and talk about the fact that these are brothers that are coming from, that were taken away from us. And they want to bring their children so they could experience what I have been able to go through as a young Black man.
Let me pause there and provide a little bit of context. You know, you live in Ohio right now and have been in the States for how long now?
For about 23, 24 years.
24 years, okay. But now you live in Ohio and you have a wonderful job. Can you give us your job title?
So currently I work as a systems director for diversity, equity, and inclusion for a healthcare system called St. Elizabeth Healthcare in Northern Kentucky.
So that's a leadership job, and you've done extremely well here in the States. And you know, I attended your I think you got your master's degree from Oakland University in Michigan. And I attended your graduation, and I know it was in the healthcare field. That's a very, very strong school or university for the healthcare professionals. So, you know, just absolutely proud of what you've been able to accomplish. You know, the 23 years that you've been here. But I just wanted to let people know that you live in the Ohio area, and you have you know, gotten your degree and moved it and kind of got promoted through a series of jobs and even geographical moves into a leadership position with the healthcare system. So that is extremely commendable and quite frankly, successful on many levels. And to get a little bit of context into Dr. Pearson and how and what you kind of mentioned, you know, when we as Americans and most folks, when we go on vacation, especially to foreign countries or countries that we're not really familiar with, it's sort of, I don't want to call it easy, but typical to stay in a resort type community. Mm-hmm. And everybody kind of wants to go venture off into to get to learn the culture a little bit deeper. But if you don't have a guide, someone who can sort of literally take you there and kind of stay with you, you know, it can be, quite frankly, a little dangerous in some cases. In other cases, it could be just a lot of uncertain. And so when this program started and what you're talking about, I wasn't involved in the program that year yet. And so it was basically done in the city where it was kind of easy from a tourism standpoint. And what you brought to it took it to a whole different level. It went from the touristy type of experience to a traditional African rites of passage ritual. So, you know, you have all the credit to take. It was your insight, your suggestion, and that really made this a program worthy of envy around the world. And so I just want to give you the credit for that. Now, as it relates to Dr. Pearson, you know, strange story, and I don't even know if I shared this with you, but how I came to get involved. I had just graduated from Morehouse and then grad school in like maybe 93, finished Morehouse in 92, finished grad school in 93. And in 94, I basically started working. And then after the Million Man March, in October of 95, I needed to get involved in something, which was the charge that was given to us during the Million Man March. And so my dad had introduced me to Dr. Pearson at his retirement party from Oakland University.
Yeah.
And Dr. Pearson was sort of he was that administrator at university administrator that basically looked out for all the minority students and made sure that they had programs to kind of bridge them from high school to make sure that they're ready for college and to make sure that they matriculate through the university and have all the different, motivation and help and support that they need to be successful. So that was the type of job that he was retiring from.
Yeah.
And my dad invited me. Now, my dad and Dr. Pearson were fraternity brothers. My dad is a Kappa, and Dr. Pearson was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. And so my dad invited me to just come attend his retirement party. And at a retirement party, he kind of mentioned what he was going to be doing with his time now that he's no longer working. He said he was going to spend half of his year in Africa and the other half here, and he would be starting a Rites of Passage academy. And I was like, wow, that's exactly what I was looking for. Sign me up. And so he had a director for the program who was very, very capable, William Lumpkin. And he and Mr. Lumpkin were both Prince Hall Masons. And so doesn't surprise him how they knew a lot about the Africa and the traditions and things like that, and discipline and building young men. And so that's sort of how the program, or how I got introduced to the program and then got involved. And then, because I had the background from Morehouse and I had a lot of the self-knowledge from a lot of the books and readings and classes that I attended, they sort of elevated me real quick to be in charge of the young men who take the trip to Africa each year, which we call the DFNE. That was the age of 13, the young men who were at the age of 13 to prepare them for the trip to Africa. And so just wanted to kind of provide that bit of context for the man who really, really made this program happen, who took the vision from Pastor Adams and literally made it a reality. But again, he did spend a lot of his time in Africa after he retired to kind of lay the groundwork, so that once we didn't just come there without preparation. There was a lot of preparation that he laid on the ground there before we even got on an airplane to come. So I'm sure you're a little bit familiar with a lot of the political alliances that he had made within the government officials. Yep. But this is even before. So talk a little bit about those alliances that he made both before we started going into the village, and then how that translated into those alliances in the village with the elders themselves.
So one of the things that I think, and another person that I think I want to pay homage to is Dr. K. Lovelace. Mm-hmm. Dr. Lovelace and Dr. Pearson, before CAFO or the Rites of Passage went to the Gambia, they were taking the kids to Egypt.
The girls.
For a few years. And mm-hmm. Then Dr. Pearson, with his connections with the Gambia, wanted to make sure that he is able to give these kids something more meaningful to them. Going back to our history, that most African Americans or most Black people that were taken of Africa to come to the New World as slaves actually originated from the west coast of Africa, going from Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ghana, going all the way to Angola. So he wanted to make sure that these young people are able to connect back to those roots. And that's one of the reasons why he wanted to get those in the Gambia, because he felt very safe, he felt love for the country, and he felt some kind of belonging to that community and to that country. So initially when he came, it was basically a quick Rites of Passage the first year in '93. And then that's when I got connected with him and then connected to the village. And I had to go and talk to the village. And then both myself and my former boss, who actually just passed last August, Salifu Kujabi, who ended up being a very good friend of Dr. Pearson, may their souls rest in peace, including Dr. K. Lovelace. But those individuals are people that were very interested in the welfare of young people. And I think that just like Dr. Adams, Charles Adams would say, that we are children of God and God will lead us to places where we'll make a better impact in other people that need our help.
And let me just add to that before you continue, just to kind of add another point to it. You know, we talk about Kay Lovelace. I know we're talking about the Rites of Passage program for boys. Kay Lovelace, we had a Rites of Passage program for girls, and the girls used to go to Egypt, and the program was called Kentucky, based on the Kentucky queens in Egypt. And so, you know, that was sort of the basis of that program. And then when tourism got a little bit unstable in Egypt, that's when we started bringing the girls to the Gambia with the boys. So that's the connection there. The other thing I wanted to, you know, to mention was, no, that was the main thing I wanted to kind of, you know, give a little bit of background in. So yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, so when we talk to the elders in the village and share that these are our own children who are wanting to come and be able to instill these values, these cultures, and the main center of our education, especially for a young Jola male like me, when you go through the rites of passage, the education is centered on two areas. The first is respect for womanhood. The woman is considered the beacon of the family, so putting value to the woman, putting value to your mother is very, very important. And so a young man would be seen as more valuable based on how you treat your mother, how you pay attention to your sisters, and so on. Mm-hmm. So those are very important pieces that you get training while you go through this rites of passage. The next piece of the rites of passage is more focused on the role of the man, the young male in the family, how you are going to be responsible for your elders, how you're going to be responsible for your parents when you take the leadership of the family. So it kind of preparing our young people to make sure that when you are ready to be the father, when you're ready to reach that, you have already gotten the preparation to take role. And so when I had the conversation with the elders in the village, they became really excited. One of them was my father, who at the time, he is very aware and he has so much knowledge about the slavery and the disconnection between Africans and African Americans. And so with that, he was actually one of the voices. And then the other person was, I know you remember Dudu Bojang.
Oh yes, absolutely.
He also passed on to join the ancestors. But Dudu Bojang was another advocate. And so when those two came together, it was less selling for me. They were able to, the elders were able to sit and say, we're going to accept this program. So we sent, Dr. Pearson has already came back. So we sent him a fax from the office and said, hey, the elders in the village accepted your program, and then we'll begin planning for next year if you think this would be helpful for your group. And so one thing that you have to think about and understand about the culture in Africa and the leadership in the village, the elders agreed on this. And so they called the young people and said, we have agreed to help educate our brothers and sisters coming from America. So we are having their children come here and we charge you to, so it's not like asking children or young people like me what to do. They were just telling us and charging us with the responsibility. And so we don't have any way to question. the young people just went ahead and took it on.
Yeah, and you know what also is very significant to note is that Hartford Memorial Baptist Church is a Christian church. Pinyam Village is a Muslim village. Can you get into a little bit of you know, I know you mentioned Jola. Can you talk a little bit about the cultural traditions and religion in Pinyam, of the people in the Gambia and then in Pinyam in general, and did that play a role or obviously not in making the decision to accept this program?
So one of the key things that you realize is the Gambia per se is a Muslim majority country. Gambia is 85 to 90% Muslim. And then the other 15% is Christianity and other groups. Penyam was like that too. We have a very small Christian minority ethnic group in the village called the Manjago group, but everybody else is, the majority is Jola, and you have Mandinka.
But Jola's not a religion though, right? I mean,
no, Jola is not a religion. Those are Jola, Manjago, and Fula. They're all ethnic groups. They're all tribes that lived together. Even though the dialects are totally different, but everybody else in the village, because Jola is the majority ethnic group or tribe, everybody else seemed to, even though if you follow Mandinka, you were able to speak Jola. And so it's very common for the average Gambian or somebody from the village to be able to speak 1, 2, 3, 4 ethnic groups or tribes, right, languages. So, but again, in the village, like I said, 90% of the people in the village are all Muslim, and we have a small minority that are Christian. But when you see us together, you will not be able to tell who is who is Christian and who is Muslim, because we all interacted together. We are all part of the same congregation in terms of socializing and all kind of stuff. We all play in the same soccer team. We all have different clubs. So again, every age group, and let me give you a small little contest about the grouping in the village, right? The women have their own group and also by age. So you realize that my age group, we have our own club. My younger brother, Salifu, they have their own age group and their own club. My brother Omar have their own age group and their own club, going up and up until you get to the elders. So every age group, so you realize that when you talk about, that's like hierarchy. When you talk about respect, the little ones respect this group respect this group respect this group, until you get to the elders, who actually, that's council of elders, are people that basically make decisions
for the betterment of the community at large.
Right. If there is conflict, if there is dispute, those are the people that come together with the village chiefs and be able to pass judgment and decisions. So in many cases, like in America, when you realize that neighbors would have issues and then they end up in the court, right? In the village, growing up in the village, I've never seen any time when the court system resolves conflict in the village. It is the neighbors and it is the council of elders that will always come together and resolve those differences or misunderstandings. And as they would always say, let's have a family discussion.
So I guess what's the sort of the you know, the leadership hierarchy in the village? I know that there's a village chief. I know there's a village imam or priest. There's a council of elders that you mentioned. And then there are various, I know, the different age groups and the different tribes, and to a smaller degree, different religions. But from a hierarchy standpoint, are those kind of the three main things: the village chief, the village imam, and the council of elders, or am I missing?
Yeah, so you are so right. So you have the village chief, who is kind of like over here, you're talking about the mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he is supported by the Council of Elders that work with him. And so the other thing that you have to think about is because you have different families in the village, so there is also a hierarchy in the families, right? For example, if you look at my family, the Nyasi family is the largest family in the village, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even though we have so many compounds that are all Nyasi, we all report to one elder.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So anything that happens within the family has to go through the elder of the family.
Gotcha.
Right? And then so that elder in the family is represented in the village council of elders,
Okay.
coming from every other family in the village.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you have another group that came together, as we call the VDC, which is the Village Development Committee. This is comprised of young people in the village from different age groups and including women. And these are the individuals that are charged to monitor and engage and work towards the development of the community.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, just from a context standpoint, this program started in 90, I think you said 93 was the first time that
they went to the Gambia,
went there. And pastor, the current pastor at Hartford, Reverend Dr. Charles Gilchrist Adams, his son Christian Adams is now the pastor of Hartford, and he was there when you on one of the trips that you were there on.
Yes, he was there in 94 actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I didn't get there till 95, so he's been there since 94. Did he get to go into the village, or was he just in the city?
He went to the village too.
Awesome.
The city was in 93.
Okay.
And then the village took root in 94, 95, going all the way to 2001, I think 2002.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, 2001 when we last took the boys and girls over there.
Yeah, but, I just met with Pastor Christian a couple of months ago and kind of gave him a 3-year plan for this ministry because he just celebrated his 1-year anniversary being the past, taking the church over from his dad, and we showed him a 3-year forecast to continue this great work in this ministry, and he proved it without any hesitation. So it's just wonderful that that he has been to the village. He knows firsthand what this is, how important this is. Even though it was his dad's vision, it's all he's going to make sure that this thing goes, and between what you and I are doing, it's definitely going to continue. So I'm extremely happy about that.
And I think something that actually came out in 94 when the boys came, and that was the first year you came, you, Dwayne, William Lumpkin, all of you guys came. Mm-hmm. And that I remember this day that you, myself, and Dwayne were walking around the village garden, and there was the solar system that was put up by the YMCA. Mm-hmm. And but the system was not working. It's been put there for 5 years and no activity. So we walked around the garden and then we looked at it, and I could remember Dwayne saying, "So why is the system not working?" And I was able to explain that there's no resources to expand the water system to the village or to the garden, which is now Sharon James Garden, based on the support that the James family, John James and his family, provided to actually get the water running. Mm-hmm. So when we got there, and then I remember like it was yesterday, both of you and Dwayne saying, "Oh, we'll get this working next year. Dr. Pearson would do something about this work." And then, Lord and behold, in 95, before you guys came back to the village again for the rites of passage, we actually inaugurated the water system. And then we were able to have, I think that was the largest delegation from Hartford that actually came, and that actually was initiated the homecoming Roots Festival in the Gambia.
Mm.
So, and after that, there is always a Roots Homecoming Festival in the Gambia since then. But the start of that Roots Festival in the Gambia actually would be attributed to the delegation that came from Hartford.
I did not know that. I knew the Roots Festival each year because, you know, but I didn't know that it was because us. Let me give a little bit of context. That particular year, you know, Hartford Church in Detroit. I know you know this, but just for the sake of everyone else, it's one of the largest, most historic churches in Detroit. And at the time, this timetable that we're talking about right now is in the 90s. Okay, and in the 90s, Hartford had a very, very bustling membership. And that included a number of, let's just say, high net worth people who had executive level jobs in these major corporations, people who had businesses, and they were members of Hartford. And so, you know, there were people who Dr. Pearson and Pastor Adams could tap into when, you know, when they needed to get some seed money to enable, you know, whatever projects Pastor Adams and Dr. Pearson, you know, felt, you know, don't let money be the object, be you know, the detractor of your vision. So that's where one of our trustees at Hartford, John James, who owns a trucking company, or he kind of had a trucking business that just really has grown into a global logistics company. And he's done extremely well for himself, and he and his family were basically provided a lot of the seed money to do a lot of the water system project. And at that time in the 90s, Penyam Village had about, I believe, around 1,500 people who lived in the village around that time, and who needed clean water. And so, you know, of course, the primary purpose of the relationship was the rites of passage ritual, but because part of that trip involved two other stops. One was Gorée Island, which is in Senegal. Okay, which is, and the distance between Senegal and the Gambia is like the distance between Detroit and Chicago. You know, it's not that far, but because of the terrain back then, it might take all day to get there. Whereas now, if you just fly, it's like a 45-minute flight. But anyway, that's kind of the distance between Senegal and the Gambia. We would start out in Senegal, in Dakar, and so that we can go to Gorée Island, and then we will go to the Gambia. And you mentioned the Roots Festival. The significance of that is there's a village that is not too far away from Penyam, the village of Jufere, which is where Alex Haley traced his ancestry back to this particular village. And I remember there was a time where we would meet with Benta Kente, the oldest living relative of the main character in the book Roots, Kunta Kinte. So this would be like his great granddaughter. And she passed away, unfortunately, in the early 2000s. But I remember meeting her every year. She would greet us when we would visit the village of Jufere. So that's why they would call it the Roots Festival, because if you want to see where Alex Haley traced his ancestry back, it would be in the Gambia. And that's where I believe when he was captured during the rites of passage ritual, I believe, and taken to a slave ship, if I remember the story correctly.
That's very true. And I think the connection actually with Hartford and the Gambia is Dr. Pearson in 1981. He has been good friends with Alex Haley. And so his first visit to the Gambia in 1981, I think, or 82, I cannot remember the year very well, but according to Dr. Pearson, he was a delegate of Alex Haley to Jufere. And that's how he came to the Gambia and then after he went with a message from Alex Haley to his village of Jifre, he fell in love with the Gambia and never left. Like they say, you go to the Gambia, you drink the water, you will never forget.
Right? I forgot about that connection, so I'm glad you brought that up. And so, you know, the rites of passage ritual is a you know, kind of a secret ritual. I don't know how much you know about this though. You know, we have in the States, you know, it's not just in the States, but the Boy Scouts of America, and the Boy Scouts was founded by a European gentleman by the name of Lord Baden-Powell. Yep. And he was doing military work or something like that in Africa and observed the rites of passage ritual and brought that back and did what Europeans do. They, you know, they kind of capture it and turn it into their own. And that's where the Boy Scouts came from, you know, observing them. So, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily know that bit of history. Right. You know, but anyway, the Boy Scout, I mean, the rites of passage ritual that we participate in, you know, in the Gambia, with the village in Penyam, I mean, you know, it starts with a celebration, the brothers and sisters in Africa, welcoming their brothers and sisters from America who were captured, enslaved, went through 400 years of you know, slavery. You guys went through hundreds of years of colonization. You know, I think the French colonized Senegal. Who colonized the Gambia?
The British.
The British colonized the Gambia. So there was a lot of resources, a lot of, you know, so we kind of all kind of went through a Holocaust in that sense. And now this is sort of the coming together of that. And it warms my heart to hear you say the elders in the village were fully aware of this history and the significance of this coming together, brothers and sisters in Africa and brothers and sisters in America, and participating in a traditional ritual, because we don't have something like that here in the States, the Black community. We don't have rites of passage. The Jews have the bar mitzvahs and the bar mitzvahs at the age of 13. We as African Americans, we don't have that here in America. You guys have that in Africa. It's part of the tradition. And so if you just sort of think about that, we don't have that here. So rites of passage here in America. And so who's training these, you know, these young boys how to take over the if we don't have the good father system in, you know, mother and father and family structure, who's teaching these kids how to be men? And that's kind of one of the main things that we wanted to do, because, you know, there's a lot of households that don't have necessarily that infrastructure that is going to be conducive to them. So that was a very, very significant, you know, aspect of the program, is bringing back the cultural significance of manhood and womanhood training.
And I think one thing that I think is very significant in this, and actually, which is very significant for the African Americans, especially for the young boys that we brought from Hartford to Penyam, is that it's not only going through the rites of passage, but also paying homage to a lost history. And so it, when you realize that when folks, Dr. Pearson brings folks with the delegation from Hartford and the boys and the girls to come, it was intentional that even though the majority of the activities are going to be in the Gambia, but we have to travel through Senegal. And so in Senegal, on this island, Gorée Island, which is when the slave masters during the colonization, they actually utilizes these islands as seaports where they ship slaves out of. Just like in the Gambia, we think about Jufure, the slave masters, the colonizers were not actually residing on Jufure, the village, but they were residing on the island called James Island, which the government of the Gambia now renamed Kunta Kinte Island. right?
Mm-hmm.
So Goree Island is very significant to the slave trade and the journey that brought West Africans to the New World, Europe or the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go to Goree Island, there is this door. Both of us have taken several pictures on that island anytime you visit, but it's called the Door of No Return. What is significant is what the slave masters call this door the door of no return, meaning you go through that door, you either shipped as a slave or you die on the ocean. But now that the ancestors of those slaves were able to come back and look at that door that they call the door of no return at the time, we
We're
feel
back.
like
We've returned.
you have returned. So what is this door? We didn't return through the door, but we are back looking at the door that you said we will never come back to.
And it's important for the young people to understand the sacrifices that were made. You know, when you look at that door, you know, for us adults looking at that door for the first time, it's a very emotional experience because we get it. We get the sacrifices that were made. People went through that door and never saw their homeland again. We're able to see that, but there was so much trauma that went on for hundreds of years before we were able to come back and return. So one of the issues, now I'm not going to call it an issue, one of the concerns that we had in the church in Detroit was the age of the students, 13. At age 13, how much are you going to really take that in? An adult, absolutely. But you know, these parents were like, we're spending a whole lot of money to send a 13-year-old there. Are they really going to remember this? Are they really going to be able to take it in and understand the significance of it? You know, obviously they got over that, but you know, Dr. Pearson and I and Mr. Lumpkin and Dwayne, we had to kind of have a series of meetings with the parents to help them understand. And the beauty of it is, again, time frame now, we're talking about, you know, 1993 to about 2001. We went every year, took a different group of kids every year. So these kids that we took are now grown with jobs and families, and we can talk to them and ask them the significance of this. And I tell you, they're like 38 and they're in their 30s now, even approaching 40. They remember it like it was yesterday. You know, so do not be afraid, or do not think that a 13-year-old brain can't comprehend or absorb the significance of this type of trip or this type of experience.
And I think to reinforce that comment you just made, when I went to the Rites of Passage, I was around that age. When I went to the Rites of Passage was back in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
I was only 15 years old,
mm-hmm.
right? And going through the Rites of Passage at the time and spending over 60 days in the bush.
Mm-hmm.
We do it, when we get the boys from Hartford, even though we give them the bush experience, is basically we condense 2 months activity to a 3-day activity, right?
Right.
But what is even more meaningful when we take the boys from Detroit to go through the Rites of Passage is that we were disconnected as African Americans from our African roots. So being able to bring these boys and assign them a family that adopted them. So the family adopts this kid, every kid, both boys and girls. And after this adoption, the family goes through the ritual of giving these young men and women a family name and choosing a family member. And I think that's how you yourself, being the Kintango of the group, you were assigned the family of the Imam, who is like the priest in the village.
Mhm.
And that's how you get your name, Suleiman.
Ibrahim
And
Suleiman Toure.
Ibrahim Suleiman Toure, and you're named after the Imam's son, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And just like John James and his family, John was named after my father. John in the Bible is translated to Yahya, which is my father's name. And that's how Lauren, John's son, was part of my older brother who passed, his family. And that's how, so every individual kid is actually adopted, and you go through the ritual of a naming ceremony, and then they dress you in the cultural outfit and the women will and the men will dance you into the bus in that hot sun,
Yep.
and then we don't come back to the village, to the center for the night, because for us, I slept in the bus. One of the things that we actually instill in these young people is when I went through those 2 months of the passage, one of the key learnings is instilling community service into young people.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's the reason why waking up very early in the morning, because one of the things that is told to us going through this ritual is that you have to give without asking anything back. So we wake up in the morning and we will go and weed an elder's farm, or somebody is trying to build a house, we go in and make the brick before everybody is up. So by the time they wake up, they see their farm is already weeded. Or if they're making bricks to build a house, the bricks are already done that early. Who did this? Oh, the boys came by here, And
so they would get assignments each day to do things like
to do something for the community, for the elders, for a family member whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that very early. And then when you come back into the bus for the day, then you play games, you do other things, you learn. Your quintangos are there with you to chill around and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the main thing about the rites of passage is instilling humility in a person. And getting people to recognize that I am here not because of me, but because of all of us. And I cannot be me without all of you. And so those are some of the things that is more. And I think when you talked about 13 years old, I can go back and tell you when I went through the rites of passage back in 85, over 30 years ago, I can tell you a lot of the things that we did, like it happened yesterday, even though I was so young. And the rites of passage does not come for example, for the Jola tribe. They do this every 15, 20 years, right? So when the group that went, so my late uncle, Yankuba, we were the second group after they went. And that was over 20 years since he went, right? So because they don't want to take a small kid, I was born at the time, but they felt like he's too young to learn anything. We have to wait until he's a little bit matured, so he would know what we're teaching them, and so that he could instill this in his children. He would be a better husband. He would be a better father. He would be a better leader when he comes to take the responsibility of the family. So they prepare you, even though, just like we say in the royal family, right? Right now, from my cousins, because Sidi's father, Sidi, his father was the head of our family and he passed in August. So my uncle, Mamadou, Meta's husband, right? The late Meta's, your wife's namesake, he is now the head of our family in Penang, right? And then after him, his brother Marlang will take over, right? So after my uncles, the next person in line would be Sidi, and then after Sidi would be Omar, and after Omar would be me. So you think about, it's a long line for me to wait to be there, right?
Right.
Who knows if I will even be, you know? But I think those are, and I think those are the ways that we respect, we pay value, we pay tribute to each other, and looking at the lineage of the family tree.
I'm glad you mentioned that because 13 is kind of the I guess the typical age, but it does not have to be 13. It's just sort of, you can go in the bush when you're 14 or 15 or even 16, just long as it happens, when before you are ready to be a man or a woman.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I have gone to, when I went to the Rites of Passage, I've gone with people who were 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
22 years. What held those individuals from even getting married at the time is because they didn't go to the Rites of Passage.
They don't let you get married until you've gone through the rites of
Until you
passage?
go through the Rites of Passage, because that is you passing from boyhood to manhood.
Wow. That is very deep.
You know?
I'm glad you clarified that because we want to, what you and I, we didn't create it. We're managing it, and so we're giving homage to the people who created it, and we're blessed to take the reins and doing the great work, God's work for God's people. So we're blessed to be able to do that, but we want to expand it, obviously, to other churches and community organizations, fraternity, sorority, any organization that wants to do something like this. I want them to understand that there's a blueprint, that they can go do it themselves. And if they want to join us, in the future, because the village now has over 3,000
People.
members now, because clean water is a big draw.
Yep.
So the village has expanded from 1,500 people in the 90s to over 3,600 people, over 300 families. And they now have a elementary school, a middle school, and a high school,
Yep.
teaching kids from 15 neighboring villages.
Yep.
And so, this clean water system that that was put in back in the 90s and was just upgraded 2 years ago, the village is going to expand even more. And so there will be plenty of opportunities and families for people, outside of Hartford or outside of Detroit even, to participate in this type of ritual, and to bring young people from the States to engage in this. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion, so people can understand that this thing didn't just happen in a vacuum, but I want people to feel as though this is something that is needed, something that is necessary. And just like what you mentioned about humility and teaching service and giving community service and humility, what we teach, because our program is not just taking this trip to Africa. We met every Saturday morning, and we're teaching them about the history of our history and our ancestry, so they can understand, because that's not taught in the public school system.
Nope.
Okay, it's not taught in the private schools. There may be some Afrocentric charter schools these days that are centered around Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, people like that teach some of this, but that's very, very few and far between. So that was one of the things that we made sure that we taught them, so that they have that understanding and appreciation of the connection between their brothers and sisters from Africa and their connection to them. So no, I'm glad that that you clarified that. Let's talk a little bit about the cost of this experience, because that's something that we can't, it's just not about just showing up and going there. There's a certain cost associated with doing something like this,
So
and
even before we talk about cost, and I think that our conversation was more centered around the boys. But we should also understand that the same thing that happens for the boys, the women do the same thing. There's also
different bush on a different side of the village.
of the village. So the women component is a part of that, teaching women to be good mothers, because unless you learn and you are able to be that good mother, it's very difficult to assume that responsibility when you are right there to be when you become a mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they teach you all that. They teach you about making sure that you are able to hold back. Not saying don't love, but being intimate can wait a little bit of time, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and then put your priorities straight. This is what you have to do. You will be loved. Don't Man will always come for you, but there is always a time. Your body is sacred,
Mm-hmm.
and don't just give it to every man, but give it to the man that is well deserving of you. So they teach you all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that's the reason why we were able to incorporate when the tourism and safety in the Middle East, which includes Egypt in some context. Because when you talk about Africa, Egypt is there, but when you talk about the Middle East, Egypt is in the middle of that as well. But then the move from the Kente experience from Egypt to the Gambia, and then we're able to get the girls. And your wife, Michelle or Meta, has been the lead Kintango for the girls, and getting them through that experience was very awesome. But
And one
again, I would
benefit
just
too, and
wanted
I don't
to.
know if you remember this, Alu, but Michelle was she did make one of the trips with the girls to Egypt.
Oh, okay. So she made
Yeah,
the Egypt before the Gambia. Awesome.
yeah. So she actually made both trips, in 2-year increments. So she would the year that she came with us, the first year that we brought girls to the Gambia, that previous year she was with that group of girls, a different group of girls in Egypt, and
Oh, okay.
like you said, it was a study tour. Yes, they visited the pyramids, they visited the Sphinx and a lot of the things that you would visit in Egypt, and understand and it's a very, very rich history and significance for our for our culture, but it wasn't a rites of passage ritual traditionally.
Right.
It was a study tour.
Oh,
you
okay.
know and so that was very, very significant, for them to start coming to the Gambia and having a traditional rites of passage ritual, similar to. So I'm glad you brought that up, because there's going to be a lot of women who will want to know, well, what goes on in the women's, but we're not allowed to go in there and observe
Right.
and understand what goes on. But you spoke in very general terms about what goes on in the bush for young men, and
For
some
young
of
women.
the values and principles in that. I'm sure that there's some similarities with the women and what they do.
Women.
I can't get Michelle to tell me. She just kind of said that's kind of like pledging, and then she'll just kind of leave
Yeah,
it at that.
exactly. So it's a pledge. So again, even for me, my sisters went through it. Um, Anyone, no man. That's when you know the lioness in women. If you try to invade their territory,
Ooh, watch out.
watch out. So as much as the men's is off limit for women, the women's is also off limits for the men. What they do there is theirs,
Hmm.
right? But again, it's nothing to fear. Is basically instilling in values, instilling stuff that is going to make this person a better woman, a better man during transitions to womanhood or manhood.
Hmm.
That is the center point of all this. And I'm sure you could testify to this, that a lot of our boys, before they actually made the trip, some of them were troubled young people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Some
I'm,
of
I'm
them
glad you brought that
were,
up. Because when this program was founded, I would say probably only 40%, maybe half, 40 to 50% of the young men were actually members of Hartford Church. The remaining half were from the community, and specifically the what they call at-risk community, because what Dr. Pearson wanted is he wanted this program, because Detroit Hartford might be considered a bit of an elite church. I mean, very, very middle class, very people had, a lot of people had nice white collar jobs, and their kids were in good shape, with or without this program, from their perspective. And so Dr. Pearson wanted to make sure that we reach out into the community and the neighborhood, and we we do offer this program to those young men and women as well. So I'm glad you brought that up, and that's a very significant thing too, and that's where fundraising was very important,
Right.
because back in the 90s, and you're just consider this 1990s money, probably a good estimate would be about $3,000 per person to experience
Yep.
something like this, and that's a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what we would do at the church, through the men's ministry, in which I'm now the vice chairman of the men's ministry at Hartford as well, we do fundraising once a year. And they did fundraising back in the 90s, and they might raise a lot of money, and that would help to subsidize the trip for the young men. And we had the young men, or basically the families of these young men and girls, contribute about $800 of the cost of the trip, and the remaining was raised funds, so that they had a little bit of skin in the game, and that was sort of the arrangement that we had. And so the fundraising component pull off a program like this, in today's dollars, I don't know if you have any kind of a figure, but maybe 3,500, $4,000, I don't know.
Yeah, I would put that at max $4,000.
Yeah.
Between 35 and $4,000 because of travel, airline costs, and because we don't want to take a portion of the experience out. So, which means that travel to Senegal and Gorée Island, and visit to the Renaissance Center in Dakar.
Yep.
All those are important components of the trip, and then traveling to the Gambia. So you're going to see two countries at once, but also see the influence of the Europeans in Africa, both the French influence and the English influence, and how Africans were able to, despite those influences, were able to hold their traditions and cultures actually safe, and
do it in the when you're in the bush, you're in a tent or sleeping on the ground, right? But when you're not in the bush, you're in an air-conditioned bus together. So when we're traveling, we're sharing. There's a guide that stays with us the whole time, a driver and a guide, and so though that's where the cost comes. We stay in a hotel at the in Senegal, and then so a lot of that, and then the food, of course. There's a cost associated with that. So I think $3,500 to $4,000 US dollars is probably a good estimate, just to sort of, and so it's just too much to ask for a 13-year-old to come up with $4,000 to participate in this. And so that's where, we have to take it upon ourselves to get grants, to get these high net worth individuals, or to get donations from members of your church or organization to be able to pull something like this off, and not just pull it off in one big swoop. No, we did this every year. So we took a different group each year, and that you're going to be going to Africa, let's just say 2 or 3 years, if not more, before you actually make the trip. Because again, remember, we meet on every Saturday morning. So if you're 11 years old, and you're coming to the program, and that when you turn 13, you're going to be taking this trip to Africa, you start saving money then. your family start saving money then to take this trip. We're going to fundraise every year to try to, you know, subsidize that,
Subsidize
as
your
much of
cost.
that as we possibly can. But, you know, we have to talk about the financials because, you know, it does take money to pull this off. It's a great idea, but it does take money to pull it off.
And,
You know,
and
and
I
so
think
we have to.
also the money doesn't only go to hotel, transportation, but we also, the village organized this big festivity before the boys and the girls go to the bus. And also for when the biggest festivity is when they come out of the bus.
Yep.
And so you think about all the villages around Penyem, all the 15 villages, it's like word of mouth. It goes like fire. All these villages come to celebrate this young man going through this experience. So part of the funds actually goes to the village in helping to organize those festivities as well. But I think the most important part is that it's not about, you know, it's expensive to come up with $3,500, $4,000. But what the return on investment on this is those life skills, those experiences that these young men learn and bring back to enrich their lives. I remember, I think it was 95, if I'm not wrong, Antoine.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on, it was late at night. That was the first night in the village before the next day we were going to dance these kids to the bus on Friday. And this was Thursday night. And Antoine and I were walking in the village, and Antoine saw this kid and says to me, Mr. Nyasi, look at this kid. He got no shoes. So Antoine is listening to me now. He might not remember this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he had no shoes. Look at his smile. And I said, Antoine, not what you wear that makes you smile, is what you have inside you, is how safe you are, how contented you are with your life is what makes that smile. And I think he learned a lot because on that encounter, because again, we in America with parents, kids get angry because you didn't get them that video game, or you didn't get them to play on Fortnite and all those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to another community where wearing a pair of shoes is what is important for that child than for playing a video game. You know?
That's one of the first things that that the kids realize is when our 13-year-olds come off of that airplane and they're walking around in their, you know, in their nice sneakers. I mean, they're treated like rock stars. They have their you know, NBA jerseys, their, you know, sneakers, and they're just like, yeah, this is, you know, these are my old ones because I know we're going to be doing a lot of walking in dirt. So yeah, I didn't bring my really nice shoes. I brought these, you know, these old ones, and the young boys from Africa treat them like rock stars because it's, you know, and it is overwhelming to the young men. And so I'm so glad that you shared that story with Antoine because it's when you see, and let's just say me, because you grew up in this village, so it doesn't surprise you. But when I look at the people in this village, and just for context, this is 2020. It's about to be 2021. Thank God. This village, Penyem Village, still doesn't even have electricity.
Nope.
So just kind of let that sink in. Okay, we're talking about 1990s, but right now, even to this day, this water system that we put in 2 years ago, we had to purchase about 20 some odd solar panels to power the pump. Yep. to provide clean water for 3,600 people because the village doesn't have electricity yet. And so you're talking about most of these families don't even have a solar panel on their house. So as soon as the sun goes down, it's pitch black in your house.
Candles or lanterns.
Candles or lanterns. So But you see these kids, you see the beautiful melanin, flawless melanin in their skin. Their skin is so tight.
And
Okay.
natural.
Their smiles are so big. And they don't know.
And I think one thing that I think, again, for somebody who is listening to our conversation and saying, all right, I'm going to spend $3,500, $4,800, $4,000 to get my child to this experience. What I get next? I want to go back to who I am today and who I was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So growing up in the village, and in 97, I came to Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
When you and I, actually, my first TV, to even think about a TV in my house,
Right.
We went to Best Buy in
I remember that now. Okay, I forgot about that.
Right? We went to Best Buy in Southfield and bought me this TV. Now my wife and I were able to watch this little TV at home with cable, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Something that I never thought about.
Right.
Growing up in the village where there's no electricity, no running water. And it gave me, and then we talked about how it's growing in America and raising kids in America compared to the life that I was accustomed to,
Mm-hmm.
which my kids didn't grow up in that environment. But it was my responsibility to have them experience that.
Mm-hmm.
So that when they become responsible people, they would understand that this world is not an island, right? America is not a country by itself. America is a country because of the Gambia. America is a country because of England. America is a country because of China. America is a country because of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Because we interact, we do business with each other. And so they have the haves and the have-nots in every country. So when you are in a position of leadership, you're in a position of influence, you will always think about those people that don't have and what influence can you make to make a difference in their lives. And so when you go back to thinking about what Hartford have done to Penyem, even though we've gone 25 years, Hartford continue not only in helping people, the health of the people in Penyem by providing them clean water through solar pump, but it has also been involved in educating young people in the village. For example, if you think about Sering and Lamin, through Dr. Pearson, they were sent to the GTTI, the Gambia Training Technical Institute. One young man learned carpentry and plumbing, and one other young man learned electricity. Mm-hmm. Right? That's how they got jobs. Sering is now in the military, in the army, and going back to the village when we're doing the water system, he is the one that is leading the plumbing pieces of it. So we don't have to pay a contractor to do that piece. So the people in Penyem doing it through the training that we were able to provide them. So
yeah,
those are very important.
Just for context, we negotiated that into the contract with the contractor who built the water system.
Yep.
We said, hey, you got to train 2 people from the village on how to maintain this water system.
Exactly.
And so it made logic to get folks who had the trade in electricity and one person from the trade in plumbing. And that was sort of negotiated, into the contract. But you bring up an interesting point as well. One of the things that we're going to be doing is, everybody from the village doesn't go to college. You go to college, you go to trade school, or you go to work on the farm or work in the city, in a job. That's, it's very, very similar here in the States,
right?
Similar there in the village, but a lot of times cost and funds might be the determining factor as to which route you go, because it costs money to go to trade school there. The main trades there are plumbing, electrical, and there may be 1 or 2 others. And of course, they have a university in the Gambia where you can study a number of different things like you would in a traditional university. But those things cost a lot of money compared to what you may have here. A lot less than what your daughter went to Michigan State, and your other daughter is currently at Ohio State. I'm sure you understand how much that
Oh,
costs.
I understand that.
It doesn't cost as much in the Gambia, but still, compared to the resources that folks in the village have. So that's where one of the things that we're doing as well. We raise funds so that we can help put a number of people to university and to trade schools, and we let the Council of Elders identify the individuals who will be awarded these scholarships for trade school and for university. And then the same thing with women to start businesses, because we mentioned women have to leave the village and go all the way into the city to sell their goods. And so one of the things that we're going to try to do is, no, we're going to do it. It's already approved in the budget.
Yep.
We're going to provide seed money to buy things wholesale so that these women can sell things retail in the village. So the neighboring village will come to Pinyam to buy things. And so now we're teaching women, women, we don't have to teach women how to be business owners. They know that part. We're just giving them some resources to help them be successful, and they don't have to leave the village in order to sell their goods.
And I think that goes back to someone I respect a lot, and I read a lot about him. When you talk about Malcolm X, when he said, to educate a man is to educate an individual, and to educate a woman is to educate and liberate a nation.
Absolutely.
Right. So we know that women, both here in America and in other parts of the world, with the Gambia not an exception, women work very, very hard.
I've noticed it every time I come and stay in the village. I notice it to the point where I tease y'all, man. I'm like, I sit here with the fellas all day and we sip tea and we talk philosophy, and the women are doing all the work. And I'm like, I know this ain't my place to say this, but hey, I know y'all Muslim, but hey, what y'all help these ladies out. I mean, the women do everything.
Exactly. And sometimes it's the hardest thing, right? Yeah. For me to actually comprehend. Like right now, I'm with my daughters. I'm in my daughter's room, and you could see in the background is the flag of the Gambia, right? I was able to get these young ladies very involved, and I have to work on my son, who is excited to go last summer, but COVID hit. He couldn't make his first trip, and we're hoping that next summer he could make the first trip to the Gambia. But my kids growing up, they grow up speaking Wolof, they learn the language. And my oldest daughter, after graduating from Michigan State, calls me one day and said, Dad, I just got accepted into the Peace Corps, and I'm going to go to the Gambia and serve.
No, that had to warm your heart.
That warmed my heart. So I said, wow, that's very true. Fruits don't fall far from the tree, right?
Yep.
And then the previous year, when we went to inaugurate the water system, my youngest daughter, Binta,
I was there with her.
Going into her senior year in high school. She volunteered with this organization and with college students, and was able to go help with the water system and helping to build this center where we want to build a community health center for the village. But seeing that these young women, knowing that this is where their father come from, they don't have to do it, but they have a sense of responsibility to go back to the village and forget about working a summer job, making money and buy things that they want to buy, but they want to go back and help these vulnerable communities in how to uplift and change their lives, right? And
another reason why I'm so proud of you, man. It's easy for you to come over here to the States, get your education, and forget where you came from. That's not even an option with you. You know what I mean? No. But at the same time, you still fall victim to this beast called America. This hotbed called America. I mean, you gained a lot of weight since you came here.
Oh my God, tell me. I remember, I'm not lying. When I landed in the United States, Dr. Pearson and I went to get my my ID card over at Palmer Park at the state, I'm Secretary of State. I weighed 145 pounds. Oh my God, I don't want to tell you how much I weigh right now, right? I'm like,
You
God, what happened?
lost weight.
You know, I'm like, what
Yeah.
happened to me?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, that's you. For you to raise kids in the States, it's just easy for them to be, it's a lot easier for the young people to be kind of sucked into the greedy part of being American, the privileged part of being growing up in America. And so that's another thing that I just am super proud of you, that you've been able to you know, raise a couple of several well-adjusted young people who still have a you know, a desire and a passion.
And look at Black Panther right here.
There's the young lion right there, coming
Yep.
up in the wings.
and I think this is the thing. I could not remember, and I think Keba, my son, when Black Panther came out,
Mm-hmm.
he was able to connect to that movie that he made me go. I think we watched Black Panther in the movie theaters more than 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
He said 10 times at least. You know?
Yep.
But
Yep.
that is a reckoning for a little kid to say, oh my God, the first time something is made. And then listening to the songs on Black Panther and listening to Baba Maal song from Senegal,
Mm-hmm.
incorporated into the movie. And I'm hearing those words, the music from Mali incorporated into the movie. And I know the words. I'm like, wow, those things gave me chills. I'm like, am I in America or am I somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I think that, again, you think about these things, and I'm pretty sure that those young people that we took, young ladies, Aliga, Antoine, all of those, Lauren, all those kids, when they went to see Black Panther, and I'm pretty sure they have been able to reflect back to Penyam and say, wow.
I've talked to them. I mean, you know, we're Facebook friends, and they talk about it all the time.
Exactly.
You know, and I see some of them in church. I bumped into Antoine in the mall a couple years ago, and I mean, they when I tell you they remember this experience like it's yesterday, and if they're not, you know, their parents are still involved at Hartford, and they give me updates all the time on their, you know, on their kids, and I get thank yous to this day, you know, about this program, and you know, so it's, you know, I have to fight myself to not let this go to my head, because it ain't me. You know what I mean? It's, you know, you and I were just extremely blessed to be at the right place at the right time and just have the right heart to keep this thing going. And so, and that's why it's just so important that we pay homage to those who came before us, and we make sure that we use all of our, you know, our intellect and our wit and our resources and our community service orientation to keep this thing going.
And I think that, like you said, we have to pay homage to the people that came before us and those that are with us, individuals like Mr. Badgett and Mrs. Badgett, who are still members of Hartford, thinking about Delbert Gray, who has passed on, individuals like Tony, all those individuals actually, and we just lost Reverend Nyati a couple of weeks ago. You know, all those individuals were very instrumental in not only planting the seed for generations to come, because through those seeds that they helped plant with supporting Dr. Pearson and his vision, like they said, nobody can build a house by yourself. You have to get other people to help you build a better house and a better foundation. So the foundation is built. The foundation of our vision was a seed that was planted at Hartford and then planted in Penyam. And we are now trying to water this plant to continue to grow so that we can continue to influence more young people, especially those young people that are at risk, that need to see another life in order to appreciate the life they have.
So are you the sun or the water? Because one of us is the sun, the other is the water.
Right, I'm the sun, you're the water.
Okay,
right?
You're the sun, I'm the water. All right,
Yeah.
all right.
right?
this baby is gonna grow, Alu. I am so
Exactly.
excited. I'm so excited for, for the next couple of years. I'm excited that the rice that we just delivered, a couple of days ago to the village, about 325 bags of rice for
And
162 families in the village, and I saw the video of the rice being distributed to the families, and we did it in honor of Dwayne Eason, our brother who passed away a couple of months ago, and his widow, his wife Valerie, is just on cloud nine to know that her dear Dwayne's memory is living on, because he was an instrumental part of this program. and
I
and
think,
that's what we're going to do with all of these scholarships that we're going to be doing. They're going to be named after all of these people that we just mentioned who were part of this program. So that they're going to know that you are receiving the Dwayne Eason scholarship to trade school. You're going to get the Dr. Pearson scholarship to university, the Mangedwa and Yadi scholarship to, Tawana Braxton, Delbert Gray, where the memories of these folks, Kay Lovelace, they're going to live on.
and I think that's key. I think that I got very emotional. I got a call from the village, and Ansu called the other day, and we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
And after Ansu called, I spoke to Mamadou Bojan, Dudu Bojan's son.
Yeah.
He also called, and COVID have made life very difficult every part of the world. The Gambia is no exception. But for what our vision was to help with the support of Hartford in memory of our brother Dwayne, and the smiles, the hope, the gratitude of all those families, knowing that there's, for the next couple of days, the next 10 days, the next 15 days, I thank God and I thank Hartford for putting food that I don't have to worry. Depending on the family size, that rice could go for 3 weeks. And they don't have to worry about that. And so the people over there, they actually, they appreciate the little things. You and I were there before. It doesn't matter how much you give. What is more important is the intention to give. And then we have the intention, and that intention became materialistic and then materialized, and then we're able to provide them something to feed. And that a father is not going to be worried that my children are not going to eat the next day. I think that was huge. And when I got those calls and people are thanking us, and they say, tell Ron, we say thank you. And they know Dr. Adams, the village always, it gets me off, because I think that this is very huge. And so with the things that we want to do next month, we're going to show the women what we have for them.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
All these are things that are great. And just like, and I think, like I said earlier, I read a lot about this lady too, Maya Angelou.
Mm-hmm.
And she teaches me a lot anytime I hear her videos or read a poem that she put around,
mm-hmm.
or a quote from her. But when she said, when you have, give. When you learn, teach. What we are doing is embedded in that. And I think she became a great poet, and she became a great writer and a great teacher because she did what we did, or what we're doing right now. She sacrificed time to travel around the continent.
She spent a lot of time in Ghana.
Ghana.
With Malcolm X and James Baldwin and others.
Right. You know, and that enriched her life to be able to give herself to the whole world. And I think that's what we're doing. We are not be able to do this without the support of those that come before us.
And one thing I want to make sure, just for people who want to do this work that we're doing, because when I share what I'm doing with my Morehouse and Spelman classmates, and of course other people at Hartford, I mean, and other friends, I mean, they are kind of envious in a way, because they want to be doing, they would love to do stuff like that, and some of them are. This is one of the things that we're trying to do. Now, I'm a trustee at Hartford as well, so I'm in the count room. When you pass the plate during service, that money comes to the count room, and in our church envelope, there's a line item. Of course, you got tithes, offerings, always the capital campaign and what have you, the benevolent fund, and there's Africa Relief is a permanent line item on the church offering envelope. So you put in your money, your check, your cash, whatever, and you assign it to whatever it is it's going to. And so, a lot of times I don't see big numbers coming in for Africa Relief. It's those $5 and $10 a week, that I see coming in. And those $5 to $10 a week for several members adds up to the type of money that enables us to do things like what we just mentioned in terms of bags of rice and scholarships and things like that. Yes, you at some point you do have to ask certain members for higher numbers, because what you're trying to do will require folks who have a little bit more means to make sizable donations. You have to that's just part of the process, and you have to be bold enough to ask people. Yep. For that, set up, do what you do, set up meetings, talk to them about the vision, show them video of this, show them, talk, let them see and understand the significance of this, and then let them see how well this machine is oiled and managed, that they can trust us with that money, because we have done this many, many times. We know exactly what we're doing. We know exactly where the money's going to go. And we trust the people are going to, every dollar that you send, we trust that it's going to be accounted for, and it's going to go exactly towards what we're telling you it's going to do. If you don't have that, it's hard to ask people for something more than $5 or $10.
And I think that's a very important point about how the funds that are donated and given is used. A lot of organizations would have this money goes into administrative costs.
Yeah, Dr. Pearson hated that. I remember.
What we do is we get the money right to the people that actually need it, without any administrative liability or anything that we think is going to reduce the impact of the funds donated. And so I think that, again, a lot of people may also think about, oh, there is corruption all over. And then you think about African governments. If you take this through government, well, our resources don't go through any government hands. They go right into the village that we are supporting. And it is our hope that after Penyam, as we continue doing work in Penyam, we would also look into other communities in the Gambia and even throughout the continent that are in need, and be able to support those. What we want to do is not always be giving to those communities, but teach those communities how to create wealth for themselves.
Yep.
Now we're starting with the women in Penyam. We want to teach them how to fish versus giving them the fish every day. And so they will be able to teach their younger ones to say, look, this is what Hartford, this is what Americans did for us, our brothers and sisters over there. This is what we're able to create from it. I'm going to teach you, when I'm not here, how to make this thing sustainable and pass it along generations, just as we have been given this knowledge passed on from generation to generation. And I think that is what is powerful from the work that we continue to do, is helping to teach people how to be self-reliant. We're talking about starting STEM. You know, I could say that most of these young kids in the Gambia, even in Penyem, they're very smart. Like when I give talks here in America, in high schools or in schools or in communities, because that's what my work is centered on. And I think my humble beginning in Penyem allowed me to actually do the work that I do in diversity, equity, and inclusion, helping to address health and healthcare disparities in the African or the Black and Brown communities, the people that don't have access to healthcare. If I go to the Gambia and tell them that there are people in America that don't even have money to go to a hospital, they will say you're lying, right?
Mhm.
But if you
Yeah.
think about the disparities between a school in Bloomfield Hills or and a school in Detroit, look at the gap between those schools.
Yep.
So this is here. But what we're trying to do also with our young people is to allow these kids to say, Bloomfield schools, Detroit schools, Penyam schools, they are all night and day. But when I speak to young people here, I always tell them the kids in Africa or in South America, they only want maybe 10% of what you got, and they will change this world.
Yep. Yep.
They only need a school bus to drive them to school, you know, instead of walking 4 or 5 miles. But if they could get to school quick, they can learn better. But they're tired before they get to the classroom. And when they're in the classroom, they don't even have materials to learn. And especially, I'm so dedicated to education for girls because all my life, I think one of the things that I continue to support, I don't want men, fathers in Africa, making the choice of my daughter or my son who goes to school. I'm going to send my son to school because he will come back to the family. My daughter is going to be married off. So this is an investment that's come. I don't want parents to make that choice. I'm a father of 2 older daughters.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So when I go back and do the things that we do, I remember when Dr. Pearson was alive, we were able to provide almost 200, 300 scholarships. And 70% of those scholarships went to girls. And I'm pretty sure those fathers are saying, thank you for educating my daughter. If not, I don't know what I would have been able to do today, right?
And that's going to play well in the States because I got to tell you, man, at Hartford Church, the women are running things. Okay, the Hartford Women United.
Exactly.
I mean, they are. You know, these women are executives at executive ranks of all of these corporations. And I work with a lot of these ladies on church related things. And I mean, they're, the fellas just trying to keep up these days. And so for them to embrace this and to help the women in Penyem, it's just as much as done, because we've got a great story. We've got some great folks at Hartford. And so, there's a lot more work to do. We've done a lot. I'm excited about what we've accomplished. But at the same time, I'm more excited about, a lot of the things that's next. And that's just one of the things I just wanted to, as we kind of, wrap this up, I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to let people know the type of work that it takes to, to do something like this. It has to have a level of trust with the people that you're doing so that your money does not get caught up in some kind of government, loophole. If you can establish a relationship with someone directly from the village and you leverage that relationship, and trust me, you don't want to sit in front of the council of elders and explain how some money came up missing or a fraction of the money came up missing. You don't want to sit with the elders and do that. You could be 40 years old, they will go get that switch
and
get you by the baobab tree and flog you like nobody's
and you're right. I think that in most of these communities, a person's honor
Yes.
is big. And when one mishap happens, the whole community knows about it. You don't want to be that person.
You do not want to be that
You
person.
don't want to be that person. So I think that's what is very that is what motivates me and you and the work that we have been able to do. And I think I'm really excited on where we can be. Like my 19-year-old says, I cannot wait to finish college. I'm going back to the Gambia. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, I want to go back. I'm done. But again, hey, my daughter came back from the Peace Corps because of COVID. She's thinking about going back. Hopefully this summer, they said they will send them back again.
Mm-hmm.
Excited about going back to do that and be able to give more service and be able to learn more about the culture and the people that she was disconnected with for 20 some years. If she goes back there, it's for a vacation and she's back here. And again, life in America sucks you up. But I think that what we're doing here, when the young people that we continue to serve, the Rites of Passage initiative that we're going to do, one of those kids would be in Congress one day. One of those kids would be a senator one day. For example, John James missed it, but we would have said, wow, somebody that was in the Gambia with us now is a senator in Washington, D.C., right?
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And we pay homage and thanks to John James Sr. for his efforts, his financial backing and support for our work. And it's our goal to create more John Jameses to come to our aid and to see that we do more work for these communities that I need and support the Africa Fund at Hartford, and knowing that the $5, the $10, the $20 that goes into this fund is actually changing lives for the best. Think about the water today when the women are not walking 500 meters or half a mile to get water. They can just grab water from a tap right in their compound. That is progress. That is development. Those are things I never thought would come to Peña growing up in that village.
Bruh, it's because of you, man. It's because of you. I mean, I know you're humble, man. I know you're humble, and I respect that, and I love that. But I mean, bruh, it's because of you.
Thank you.
It's because of
And
you, man. And I know that's got to feel good.
It feels good. And I think I'll go back. You met my father. He's the most
I used to love dancing with your mom too, by the way.
Exactly. My mom, exactly. And I go back to think about some of the things that they taught me. My father always said that I don't think I've ever told you this story, but my dad will go to the mosque, and anytime, every other day or every 2 days, we will see him come home with a guest, a visitor, a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll tell us, go spend the night with your friends. I have a guest who's going to sleep in your room. And we'll be mad. Dad brought another guest, another visitor to take our room. We will film. And one day I saw him going and I said, you going, hope you don't bring another stranger. I'm going to sleep in my room regardless, And he came right back. He said, there's nothing like strangers. They're friends you've never met. And I think about that, and I'm saying this, and I go back to when we first met in '94, our first conversation. And the second time you came back in '95, based on the conversation that we have, you brought me so much literature about Louis Farrakhan and all those guys, videotapes, and all those things, right?
Right.
And you think about those things. I'm like, all right, he was a stranger, right? But like my father said, there's nothing like strangers. They're friends we've never met. We have developed, and I remember you had got a person when you usually pick me up from my house to your place, and then you got me hooked and up to date. I must confess to you that I have not stopped watching that show, America's Funniest Videos. And
It's a
now
family
that this
ritual
young,
for us.
huh?
It's a family ritual for us now.
I'm
Sundays
telling
at
you,
7.
you got me hooked. And now I got this young man from the Cosby Show. What's his name again?
Theo?
Huh?
Or Malcolm Jamal Warner?
Jamal Warner. No,
Yeah.
no, not him.
Not the son.
Is it the
The
son?
Cosby Show? There was only one
Oh,
son.
no, not the Cosby Show. It's Will Smith.
Oh, Will Smith. Okay, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah. Will
Oh,
Smith.
Carlton. You talking about the host of
Carlton.
America's Funniest Home Videos,
Yes,
Alfonso
Carlton is now the host. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, but you got me hooked to that, you know?
Well, hey, I mean,
So,
I'm glad I got you hooked on some good stuff, man. But I remember like yesterday though, you talk about, for us, I mean, I'm, you and I have really good jobs, make really, decent money and have good lives for ourselves. But,
yeah.
Coming to stay in the village, a village that doesn't have electricity and you can't see nothing at night, but you just sit with folks in the village and talk all night with candlelight.
Yep.
And I mean, I just remember the conversations that we would have, because you talk about the world, because I read a lot, at Morehouse, we learned a lot about the Nation of Islam and the Moorish science temples and the Islamic Hebrew. We learned about a lot of those different, movements. And so I was well read on Malcolm and his teacher, Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad had a saying, a nation can rise no higher than its women. And so for me to observe how the women are kind of running things at Penn Yam,
Exactly.
and I'm telling you now, the women are running things at Hartford Church in Detroit. We are in the age of the woman. Kamala Harris, okay,
I'm telling you this. Wait after January 20th.
Yeah, it's only gonna go there. So we are, put our egos aside, and just pave the way for.
I'm telling you, if I volunteered, I was not to bring politics to our conversation, but I think that my most exciting moment being American is when I naturalized as a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Though now I have dual citizenship, I didn't give up my Gambian citizenship, but working on the Barack Obama campaign in 2008 in Detroit, and 2012, to get this brother elected twice, and knowing that my vote contributed to this big change. And this year, I had to volunteer as a precinct officer, to facilitate people coming to vote and observing how people voted, coming home that night about 9:30 and seeing the first female Black vice president elected, came home
from an HBCU, and top of that, Howard, Mecca.
It's
I love it.
So when I look at our children, I look at my girls, I'm like, you can be that. Never sell yourself short. Because if I did, I will not be sitting here, and I will not be speaking where 10,000 employees, 90% of those are white. Listening to not only an African-American man, but a Black man that was not even born here, who still have what you call an accent,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And so when people even talk to me and say, where's your accent from? I'm like, where's your accent from?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Because I'm here, I have an accent, but when you're in my land, you have an accent. So who is who? You know?
Yeah.
But I think that is the thing. If I'm able to come and make an impact, like yesterday, I was talking to my CEO, the day before yesterday, I was working from home, my CEO called and he said, hey, this is what I want you to do. I want the county, we do some work with the county and we are giving $50,000 to the county to work with you to develop a program that will get more African Americans and Latinos interested in healthcare. This is something that organization will never even think about 2 years ago. But for me to be in the space and be able to influence the thinking of this Caucasian
You got to
leadership
stop
team,
taking the easy route and the passive route. You got
you
to
know,
plant those seeds in their heads to do this type of work.
exactly,
Otherwise, they wouldn't think of it on their
you
own.
know,
That is
so
awesome.
what that's the thing, and this is what the challenge I always charge us as African Americans and people of color.
With your highfalutin education and your wonderful skills and your corporate jobs, keep
You
going.
know,
Tell them
let's
you can
let's
do
not
something.
occupy space. Let us teach people skills that when they assume space, they don't think about themselves and think about the seed you plant, so that when you are not there, that tree is going to continue to grow.
You will learn a true meaning of the word happiness and fulfillment.
Exactly.
Doesn't come from things.
Is what you have been able to give. And
That's,
so
that's
I
the
always think about
secret.
when we go to the village, anytime we go to the village, it's fulfilling just to walk in Penyem and just see somebody with a bucket of water turning a tap and the kids water running and they close it and take the water in. I was part of that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I've done what God has sent me here to do.
And the thing that I remember too is, when we had the celebration, the media was there, and they the newspaper media as well as the TV media was there, and they filmed some of them. It was a lot of blah blah blah,
Yeah.
talking and what have you. But what was kind of cool was when it came up on the news, they focused on what I said.
Yep.
And because John James was there, so he gave all the love from Hartford and representing the pastor and all of that. So I was just like, so I didn't have to say that part. That was sort of John's role to kind of share that message and bring greetings from Pastor Adams and the Hartford church family. So I said, hey, this thing costs a lot of money, but you know what? The bill is already paid. You guys repaid us already by teaching our kids, allowing our kids to participate in rites of passage ritual all of those years. And I've watched those kids grow into, adults. And if you put a price tag on that, on that experience that you all allowed our kids to do, hey, you guys already paid. We might owe y'all a little bit more, and I basically said something to that effect. And that's what ended up making the news.
Yeah, I think that you're right. That is what made the news. And I think that it will be exciting to see one day a young lady like Aliga or somebody else that went there bring their own daughters to go through this.
They can't wait to do it. I mean, they tell us all the time that they can't wait to do that. So yeah, no, I think we've said enough, brother. I think we planted the seed. I think we let people know. The main thing I want to do is just let you know how proud I am of you, and have gotten to know you as a brother, and to do this great work. And we both have the humility, you more than me, but I'm working on it, to know that this did not happen of our own accord.
Yeah,
Yes, there were some moves that we had to make to make this thing happen, but a lot of the foundation was we inherited some of the foundation,
yeah,
and we have an obligation to you know to kind of carry it forward. And I got to tell you, man, I am super excited about.
you know,
I'm so glad that Pastor Christian Adams has been to the village. He's totally committed to this work, and we can't. I hate that I'm not going to be able to go with you next month to the village, but I will be there next year.
I'll bring you some super kanja or some benachin. So
I wish you could bring me some chicken yassa, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't. It's gonna be days old by the time I get it. So
Yeah,
I'll wait. I'll
but
wait to get that.
I have to say that I am humbled and thankful to God to bring me the brother in you with a similar vision. I think that sometimes when you work with people and you are looking at different directions, it becomes challenging. But when you are all looking at the same direction and you all want to make the same impact and see the difference in other people, I think that makes work very easy. We all speak the same language. We all have the same energy. We have young families, but one of the things that we're doing in this, sometimes we may think that our children are not watching. They're watching every single move.
Mhm.
So we are always mindful of the moves that we make and what lesson are we teaching our kids to learn from our behaviors. So, and I think that one thing that could come out of this is that they know we're sacrificing a lot of our time to help better somebody else's life. And it's hoping that we would instill this in them so that they can instill this in their children. Um, our job will be done. So I think
Yeah.
that I really appreciate the work that we are doing together and the support that we have from the church and the community and to people that are not members of Hartford. One thing that I would add to is that Hartford is probably the space that we need to operate from, but it doesn't set boundaries for other people not to be able to participate. So we call on other people to say, join this community. If you want to do it alone and you want us to help you do it, we will be willing to do it. If you want to join us and do it with us, join us. Because we stand tall today because we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. They're still lifting us up. And we are going to be able to lift other people up. And so with that, we are going to build mountains
Well
mountains
said.
of goodwill.
Well said. And the my parting thought is when we would take boys and girls to Africa, a lot of times one of the part of the ritual for rites of passage is separation from your parents.
Yep.
Because your parents, man, they always gonna be around your back. They always want to be that helicopter. They always want to kind of you got to stand alone. You've got to stand alone. And it's kind of challenging for a parent to release a child to our custody to go across the world.
You know what? I just want to say this quickly.
Mhm.
When you just said that, your parents are going to be there. I want to take you back quickly to Lauren James.
Mhm.
When we were able to separate Lauren, even though John James, the first time he gave us $5,000 to put the water system, they didn't lack anything. They could live in the hotel that they wanted, but they gave us their son and said, take him and teach him.
Mhm.
When his older brother John was running for the Senate, Lauren was running the corporation as president.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
what we want every young person to be, to learn those responsibilities and have those skills and stand up when the need arises.
Absolutely. And, just sort of full transparency, when we take kids to Africa, there will be some parents that take the trip, not to helicopter their kids, but to experience it themselves. I
Yep.
mean, every time we take a group of kids, there will be, like 2 or 3 of the kids' parents would take the trip as well. But when we go into the bush, the parents are not allowed, into the ritual. So it's just more of a tourist type of thing.
Yeah, they
So
could
it's
do the
not
tourist
unheard
thing. The
of
kids
for
are there
some
doing their
parents.
own thing.
Yeah, it's not unheard of for some parents to make the trip with their kids as well. But but majority of the kids are there under our care and custody.
Yeah.
And when I tell you they are in good hands, trust me, they are in good hands. And if you have an organization and if you want to participate in something like this, we do encourage you to bring your chaperones too, with your group. But we have a well-oiled machine going, and like you said, it's just this is really a God-based, mission-based, purpose-driven organization and ministry that we are doing, and we welcome to expand it and to keep it going. And I look forward to the work that we're going to be doing literally in a couple of weeks there, and the next couple of years. So brother, I appreciate you. Love you to death, man. And we're gonna change the world. We're gonna continue to change the world.
Well, all right, brother.
And
You
my
have a
daughter
happy
is
new
studying
year.
chemical engineering at Hampton, and she's focusing on renewable energy.
See,
And
that's the
so
big thing.
that's the big thing. And so I can't wait to get her in the village and
That's the
maybe
big thing.
get some
Yep.
things going. So yeah, that's just what it's all about,
Yep. Binta is going to public health. And we'll see how that is. And Omi already serving the Peace Corps and getting ready for graduate school. And everything that she's thinking about is, I want to go to graduate school and learn something that I could be able to take over there.
Awesome. All right, brother. Well, hey, hopefully we inspired a couple of folks. But again, I appreciate you sitting down with me and sharing some of that history that I knew about, some of it that I forgot about, and some of it I didn't know. So I sitting down and chopping it up with you never gets old, brother.
And I think that our next thing when we are all in the village together is having this kind of dialogue with elders in the village to not only talk about the history of the village, but to give more insights on how they run their families and how conversations happen in those communities. Because I think this is one thing that is missing in our Black history. Like they say, when an elder dies in a community, an encyclopedia dies. Because there's no written history, it's history that is passed on from generation to generation. And we want to be able to document that history.
And that's sort of where I'm leveraging my gift of spoken word and storytelling, because the griot is that West African tradition of passing the oral history and passing stories down. And so that's sort of part of my passion for storytelling. And but you know, it's already done, brother. Next
Yeah.
time we're in the village, we're going to do just that, and get a lot of these stories captured so that you know, it is available and everybody can learn. So no, that's a great idea, and just consider it done.
All right, brother.
All right. Happy New
Have a
Year
good
to you,
one.
brother.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Peace.
All right. Bye-bye.